watching the Navy for a couple hours. And other than that, these are all just friends and neighbors of mine, my parish and my kids' schools, wherever. And by the way, it's not like a huge crisis because tomorrow I'm doing this for one of their kids. And last week I did it for, another, we all just do this. And that's how the world works. And if I live on a street with 30 kids, and I live in a parish, I go to a parish with schools where we're all, it's the kind of place where if you're having a baby or if you have a crisis in your family or whatever, you're going to have meals made for you by random people for the next, month. And I don't know what we would do without that. And we could have easily missed it. And so if you're looking for a place to buy a house, looking for a place to move, that's something you should have in your head because that's how this all works. It does take a village. It doesn't work, just when you think about how impossible it is, you see people with lots of kids or whatever, you think, oh, that's really hard. It's really hard because people weren't meant to do that all on their own. They were meant to do that in the context of a community. And so if you can find that, more power to you. Good luck with it.
Great, so my story starts in 2000 when I graduated from here, and I went right to grad school at Notre Dame. I chose Notre Dame over another graduate school that was more prestigious, in part because Notre Dame offered me a free ride. That turned out to be a very important decision later on because I didn't bring to my marriage financial debt. It later gave me the freedom, and my husband the freedom, to decide how many hours would be ideal for me to work outside of the home without the pressure of having to pay off financial debt. So that would be the first thing I would strongly advise you, to think really carefully about how much financial debt you start accumulating and make really darn sure that it's going to be worthwhile, that it's going to be hanging over your head for a lot of years. So I met my husband during the years I was in graduate school. I finished my coursework in 3 years and we got engaged at that point. Decided to move back to Princeton. And when word got out that I was returning, my senior thesis advisor and some colleagues asked me if I would be willing to help them start off a new research institute. And I was delighted. I would be helping my undergraduate idols, and I got to work on questions that were very interesting. So I decided to become the first executive director of Witherspoon, and the idea was that I would be working part-time on my dissertation and part-time for this institute. Everything was going great, and then my husband and I realized we were expecting our first baby, about 9 months to the day after we got married. So at this point, we had to think very carefully about how to handle this. I mean, 4 years out of Princeton, I had a research institute to help direct, I had a dissertation to write, and a baby to take care of. And normally, you could throw one of these things at me at once, but altogether, I had no idea how to do them. So I did what any Princeton undergrad is trained to do. You just do it. You just hunker down. You don't waste time asking why, and you get the job done. My typical day started at 5 in the morning. I would work on my dissertation for 2 hours. At 8:30, I would go with the baby to the office, and I worked from 8:30 to 1:30. And I nursed the baby at the office, I took phone calls, everything. At 1:30, we'd go home, have lunch. The baby would go down for the afternoon nap at 2:30, and then I would dissertate for another 2 hours. At 4:30, my work day was done. I would go for a run and then come back and deal with the massive housework things that had to be done. This went on pretty well until the baby started to crawl. The baby became mobile and started destroying office furniture. Then it became impossible. And so I had to accept my new reality, and I went to my president and I said, my husband is forcing me to tell you, it's just not working. I need some time off. And he was very gracious about it, and that ended the first phase of my undergraduate, or rather my career. And I learned some important lessons. The first was that really, if you get your act together, you can get a lot done in a 16-hour workday. You just have to cut the fat, quick dilly-dally, and just do it, right? The second thing I learned was that offices and babies don't mix. Even though my bosses were very, very open and very willing and progressive and liberal-minded, really, to have the baby at the office, it just didn't work. So the second phase of my career started when my leave of absence came to an end. It was time for me to come back to work, and we realized the second baby was on the way. My dissertation was still not done. So I wanted desperately to fulfill expectations out of gratitude to my employers for giving me time off to go back to work. My husband said, "You're out of your mind. You can't go back to work, finish a dissertation, and take care of 2 children. You have to go and tell them. You can't do everything." So I forced myself to accept my new reality. I went back to the president and I told him what was going on. And for me, I was admitting defeat. Turning in my cards, and they came back to me with the proposal that I try working from home, that I work on my dissertation from home, and actually that they would sponsor me in the working of my dissertation. They would pay me to be now a research scholar rather than an administrator. So this was unbelievably generous and exceptionally, very, very rare. And I knew I had a very good thing on my hands. But this would force me essentially to find childcare. And at the time, that was my worst nightmare. As a new brother, I was very uncomfortable with the idea of somebody else taking care of my children. My mother had been a stay-at-home mother. My idea was that mommy was best, and anybody else, if I sort of outsourced any aspect of their care, I felt like I was doing them injustice. And also, having a nanny or something felt like a tremendous luxury. It just seemed like that was for the rich and famous, and I wasn't there. But I knew that childcare had a lot of logistical inconveniences. So after just getting frustrated not being able to work on a dissertation, I finally looked for a nanny, and after a few bad apples, I came across the most wonderful woman. She is now our nanny, without a doubt, the key to our family's sanity. And she's my secret weapon for being able to do the things I'm doing. I have now become the most outspoken supporter of hiring domestic assistants for all mothers of young children, not just working mothers. So our typical day now looks like this. We wake up around 6:30, we get ready for the day and have breakfast with the kids. My husband leaves for work at 8, and the nanny comes at 9 o'clock 4 mornings a week. At that point, I go to my home office and I start working. She bathes the children, tidies up the kitchen, helps them make their beds, sits down, plays with them, does some laundry, feeds them their lunch, and she's done at 1. By that point, I emerge from my philosophical escapades. The house is in order, the children are happy, things are neat, laundry has been progressed. She goes home, I have the rest of the day to tend to them, to be more calm when I'm with them, and finally to do whatever else we have to do for the house. All in all, I work about 12 hours a week. That has been the magic number for me. 40 hours a month, so essentially it's working quarter time. I found that any more hours of research and writing, in my case, caused the children to get antsy and whiny and clingy, and I felt like I wasn't giving my family priority. And any fewer hours than at least 12 a week, and I started to feel frustrated and like I wasn't getting to work on the things I really loved and the talents that I felt I could develop. So that was for me the mean between the two extremes. My husband and I agreed that the best money we spend is on this wonderful woman who comes 4 mornings a week to help us. And we've made some financial sacrifices to have her. Our house is about half the size it probably could be. Our cars aren't anything to write home about. We don't take fancy vacations. But her assistance affords us a calmer pace of life. We can be more cheerful with each other. I have more patience with the children because I don't have so much housework hanging over my head. So now I tell my friends, really, I think domestic assistance is a luxury every mother needs. So in conclusion, this morning I was thinking, if I could turn back the clock 10 years and sit where you're sitting today,